Josh,
Hello.
you have welcome. Now you have a hat on, but you have many hats. So here we are at New York City, Boutique Fitness Summit. It's the Summit from Boutique Fitness Solutions. Back after a couple of years. You've been in the industry a long time, and you do a lot of things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the short story is I grew up in a yoga family, so I kind of ended up in the yoga industry.
San Francisco?
I would visit San Francisco. I'm from West Coast Canada originally. So my dad was into yoga, but San Francisco was like one of the closer hubs we'd end up going to. But I actually hated yoga.
Right. Because your parents made you do it, or?
They didn't make me, but like I was the quintessential hockey playing Canadian. So my concern was ice skating and beer. Like it wasn't really yoga. So ironically, that's what got me into it, because then when I finished playing, it was the thing that gave me sort of peace, and I felt better in my body and all the stuff that we hear. So fast forward another decade after that, and after building studios, owning my own studio with my wife, selling it, then we went traveling full time in an overland RV with our kids in tow.
That's pretty cool.
And I think we stopped counting studios at like 125 or something. So we had this unique moment where we got to experience like managing, teaching, owning, selling, and then being on the ground. And inevitably you have a business conversation. So that's how I ended up being a yoga business coach.
Wow.
Yeah. And then now I am also working with the company Walla, who is the talk of the software industry right now. I think they're the up and coming platform for boutique fitness, especially class-based.
And why don't you tell us a bit about that? Because we had a chat just before. I mean, some of the features and the way that you're thinking about it is coming from all the pain points of having done all those things you're talking about, right?
It's actually why I've kind of thrown my hat in the ring with them. I have no knocks on anyone else in the industry. We partner with lots of them, our clients. In my group, the Yogapreneur Collective, are using all sorts of different platforms, and they're all great. But this is the first time that right from the ground up, the founder, Laura, and then having me involved and other people, they're like everyone on the team is someone who has owned a business, who teaches in the business, who like understands the daily grind and the friction points that you would have, and really like why you would get into this. Because you could categorize everyone who's getting into boutique fitness as a passionpreneur. You're not getting like, no one says like, the reason I started this is I love business. Like that's not the primary motivator to start out. So what comes with that territory is that when you are using a software, it's not a product that you're buying. It's a partnership you have. I have people in my collective, they've been on MindBody for 22 years. And so really like every element of how they operate and their business acumen and how they've grown in their business functionally goes through the software that they're partnered with as well. And now we're in what I would call the digital era, where it's just understanding that the playing field is virtual and digital. Like even my 80-year-old father-in-law has like the newest iPhone. I always joke he can't do anything on it, but he's got it.
But he has it. First step.
But he like the way he's going to communicate with someone, the way he's going to look something up, the way he's going to schedule something, find something, book something, buy something, it's on that phone. So gone are the days where people just walk and sign up for something, which means you really have to look at, yes, the real value point is that human-to-human interaction in the class. Nothing would take away from that. But I am going to experience your business way before I physically step foot into the space. And the platform is a component of that. And how you interact with it. Like how easy can I book? How easy do I find your class? Do you have an app that works and does the things that not that you wanted to do as a business, that I as a consumer wanted to do. So
why don't you unpack some of the, how did you solve some of the solutions? Because there's a lot, there's like 100 million thousand platforms continue to pop up.
Sure.
What have you solved for us?
And just on that, because I was curious, like, do you think that some of the other platforms constrain? So you're obviously a coach and sort of trying to understand that yoga thing. So I suppose as a coach for yoga studios, do you find that some of what the regular platforms do kind of constrain what you should be doing and sort of prevent, if you could kind of build it and mold it as you wanted to, would you do it differently based on what you should be doing? Or, are those software systems kind of limiting what you should be doing as a business person? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yes and yes and yes. I mean, all of it. So the quote that I'm just like obsessed with recently is, I think it's a Henry Ford quote. He said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they'd say faster horses.
Right.
So it's the concept that you do need to listen to the industry and the market about what you should build in software. But I am not a software builder personally. I understand the pain points that I have as an operator and that my clients have as a coach. So what really has to happen, and this is why the best listeners are the ones who are going to produce the best product, it's listening to what's being said, what the problems are, interpreting that, filtering that through your knowledge is how you can actually build a solution for it, and then putting a solution on the table which makes me better at my business. Rather than me saying to you, it would be cool if in the checkout, like this checkbox was there, and then you build that. That's appeasing me directly, but I don't know what I don't know. Like, I don't know how good software is. I don't know what the capabilities are because that's not my game now. So from Walla, from the ground up, that's been the approach, is like this ownership mentality of like, if I owned the business and this was the problem, what would it look like if it was perfect? So I'm going to solve the problem, but I'm not just going to do exactly what someone's saying. Like, it'd be cool if we had a tap chip thing or something like that. What are we really solving for with that? It's going a little bit deeper.
So I guess those are more sort of like tactical things as opposed to more of a strategic approach on, how to run your business.
Well, to go back to your question as well, I think that yes, the platform that you're on can create a constraint for you. Now, that's not to like put blame on a platform, because obviously there are limitations with any platform that you would have, and that's just how that works. The truth is, the entrepreneur has to find the expansive mentality and the holistic approach to their business to see how to solve the issues and create the situation that will benefit them and their clients for maximum impact on both levels, regardless of the platform. That being said, if we look at your stereotypical 1 to 3 location yoga studio as an example, these are people that are in a perpetual state of overwhelm because they're in a hard time right now. You have to have smart business acumen. Like, we go back to 2004, opening a yoga studio in a city was a license to print money. You just opened up, you had a good location, your class was good, people came in. That was the end of the business conversation. If you do that now, you're dead. Like, most yoga studios close in under 5 years. And the one stat that people don't talk about in that too is like 80% of yoga studios are started by women. Women-owned businesses close in first 5 years. It's more like 60 to 75%. They're even more likely to close down faster. So read into that however you will. But the point would be, when you're in this state of overwhelm, then you view the platform that you have partnered with as the limiting factor. You can't actually step out into the more expansive, bigger picture. And the idea that it's like, well, the platform doesn't transfer my email to an email system, so I would have to hire a staff to then manually download and then upload and then filter and tag and manage and whatever else. And the tech industry on the whole, especially when we look at it from like a marketing lens, and thinks that that is what should be done. They're like, well, if you own a marketing company, like, you just go in and on your MailChimp and tag people and filter, or you're using HubSpot and you just do this and have your sales team follow up. Well, you don't have a sales team. You're running. You can't do that. So when you have that mentality approaching it and this overwhelm there, then it does become the limiting factor, because you just won't do it. And that's why some businesses stagnate, don't grow, and then die. Which is, so it's like the difficulties on both sides, both the entrepreneur, but it is also the platform. So I think we're at a unique moment where Walla is an example of, when you're building it with this sort of approach, you're looking at how do we make that, any of those friction points for your day-to-day operation, for your staff, for your clients, as low as possible based on the current technological ability. And what's the consumer expectation for that, so that it doesn't feel like the platform, if you're my consumer, the platform isn't between you and I. It's a tool that I'm using to actually get us closer together, not further apart. And up until that moment, I think that feeling has been quite prevalent in the industry.
One of the main friction points then you mentioned that you've sort of identified, and again, do they relate to you as a sort of as your yoga coach when you try and support other studios as well? So, yeah.
I think there are maybe 3 really major friction points that are ultra common, right? Because if you ask anyone in the industry, like, what are the problems that you have? Well, I need to get people in. I need to
fast.
I need to get them in fast. I need to sell and retain people, and then staff. Those are the 3 like major pain points. So working in reverse order, it's the simple stuff. It's not like a different feature. It's the specificity of all the little features that you would expect a platform to have. So for example, when you're signing a class in, we had the use case recently, like a U16 girls soccer team comes into a studio. Nowadays, like when I started in my studios too, people would show up 30 minutes before to get their spot in class. They'd hang out. No,
3 minutes
it's
before.
like 3 minutes before. Like, if you've been here before, I've never done yoga, so at that moment, what are you going to do? Pull a bunch of paper out and get them to sign waivers and stuff? So you end up doing something funky, like writing their names down, putting them in class, and hoping that they don't ghost you afterwards, or you don't get sued, right? So the simple step of like, how do we deal that? You can't have 50 iPads in a studio, and people are too clunky on that. So to get a new person registered in the Wallace system, they just scan a QR code on their own phone. It's all up to date, so it autofills everything. They sign with their finger, so you don't need a waiver system, and they're in your system.
3 seconds, right?
So like 15 girls coming in 5 minutes before class, they're in the class right now, waiver signed, ready to go, and we can sell them something. So it's just that little step that, like, we have the technology to do this. That's why we're putting that stuff in place. And that's just one example.
So that's one example. Take us through some of the others, because I think this is a really interesting time, and we've just got to get better at our processes, and we're very behind. There are other industries. I think we went straight into the boom, right? So like you say, people were printing money. Then it got hard. We had to do business basics, which has been a lot of the theme of this summit and everyone coming together. So just what are some of the special things, the specificity of perhaps existing features?
Yeah, I think the other two major ones would be, during the client sign-in process, if you look at any boutique fitness, like, where are you going to make your sales? They're going to happen online, but they are made in the human-to-human interaction prior to. Your email is like a component of that, text message is a component of that, but those aren't the sales technique, they're the sales amplifiers. Mm-hmm. So if I'm there and you as a human are physically in front of me, I need to, on the spot, in that little 5-minute gap before class, identify who you are, make a connection based on how you want to be connected with, not how I think it should be, and then identify if we should have a deeper conversation about how you find a habitual practice with me, and therefore a sale. Mm-hmm. So, and you need not just you to do that, because if we look at like, what's the product in a class-based business especially, it's not the yoga class, it's not the HIIT class, it's the teacher. The teacher's the product, or the front desk who's assigning the person in. So they can sit back and people can sign themselves in. But that is the biggest missed opportunity possible, because I'm not coming to you to do stretching postures. I'm coming to you for an experience, and I'm coming to you because you're here in front of me. So there is an unwritten expectation that you're going to engage me. The point being, the friction on the staffing side right now would be someone signs in, we have to wait for a screen to load. If we have multiple people signing in, we can't see them quick enough. We can't identify like which pass are they on, what type of person this is. Do I need to talk to them or not? Like, you can kind of identify that stuff, but you have to really train your staff to be hyper diligent. Mm-hmm. The simple thing like the class roster, it has a few really important features. There's something like a missing waiver. It just pops up as an alert, QR code, they sign it, you're done. Mm-hmm. Someone's new, it says new. Now that's an obvious one. The passed on, it says right there. Right beside their name, it tells you, this is how many classes Josh has taken. Mm-hmm. Like instantly. And then one unique feature is it has a personality quiz. So we actually partnered up with social psychologists to come up with like, how would we do a personality quiz that would categorize people in a simple way to give information to the staff so that they know, how does Emma want to be spoken to? Mm-hmm. So you can end up in one of these 4 categories. And this is not mandatory in the system, it's optional, but we think it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. So I can see right away, like, oh, you're a giver, or you're a doer, or you're a maverick. And it gives a maverick. Right. If you're a maverick.
Surprise.
Right. So like if you're a maverick, the way that you're going to respond is different. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use your name. I'm going to say hello to you right away. I'm going to welcome you into class, but I'm kind of going to let you make your own decisions. I'm not going to engage you on like the super bubbly level of like, hey, have you tried this new class or whatever else? Like... because you're like, I've got it already, dude, because that's how you want to be interacted with. So instantly someone signs in and that's there for that to all happen. And it's so in your face that your staff would have to consciously ignore it to not receive this information and then engage the person in front of you. So now it's just easy for them, and you as a manager of any staff can have a very like easy human-to-human conversation. dude, all the stuff's right here.
Yeah.
You didn't even talk to that person.
Is anyone else doing that psychometric, what is it, like a psychometric kind of profile?
Yeah, not built into the system firsthand, and this is custom built, unique in the Wallace system based on like who we know the clients are going to be and what the product is. So like there's tons of, you can do the Colby test, or you can do the personality test. There's a lot of stuff out there, but this is angled around how do you want to be communicated with, and even there's a little more depth to this too, but how would I follow up with you is where this is going to help keep you motivated. And this, it sounds like, we're doing some spy stuff here a little bit, but if we think about it really, if I'm coming to you to take a yoga class, I'm coming for an experience, I'm coming to create a dream outcome, a bigger result. But during that process, what I'm really paying you for is actually accountability and motivation. Because again, I can do stretching postures right here. I don't need anything for that. I can buy some weights at my house, whatever. I can get a Peloton.
But I'm not.
But I'm not. So the real goal, or the real goal to that is the accountability, the interaction, the community. That's the stuff that matters. But how you're motivated intrinsically versus me versus you is not exactly the same thing. So this is like one layer of how do we curate the client experience to be more in line with what they need to succeed. Because the other thing is, going back to the passionpreneur point, if I signed up because I'm passionate about my yoga classes, it's not because I'm not passionate about yoga itself. I'm passionate about the result that it got me and how I can see it help other people. So if I'm not starting to figure out how to really help you succeed, because here's the other thing, I know you're not going to get it in one class or two or five or 10. Like, my goal is to help you find a habitual life practice so this becomes integrally part of who you are. If that's the journey, then it's my moral obligation to serve you to the best of my ability, and that's not just teaching a good class.
Yeah, it's funny, two things on that. One is we're now in this age of hyper-personalization as well, and that's being driven by everything, our social media feeds, Netflix, Amazon, the whole thing. So we're being shaped by that anyway, and this is answering that. So you're speaking to me in my language, you're speaking to Matt in his language. So there's that part. The other thing is we had the great pleasure of meeting Laura at the Connected Health and Fitness Summit earlier this year, and I really was captured by the behavioural change piece, which really is around the personality, who are you and how do you talk through? And I really applaud you for bringing that in, because I think it's going to change everything. We're also seeing it in other related areas. We hear it in the sensei, in the way that they're coaching. They're working with behavioural neuroscientists, people who know how to put it in the positive and make it invitational, rather than I'm shouting stuff at you that's going to miss most of the room, which was the old ways. And I think even 2 years ago, it was leave it on the floor, let's go harder. There was very much this whole thing. Now it's a broader church. We're all different people. We've all been much more personalised, and we don't even know it. That's what I'm finding in the fitness industry. We're not being shaped by the fitness industry. We're being shaped by the world and the big players and the big tech and the way that we're served in other ways, retail, hospitality, industries that are much older than us, because boutiques only, what we were saying this morning, like maybe 20 years old. It's only
less than that, I think.
Boutiques.
The boutiques,
And the whole organised fitness is really only about 50 years old, so we're babies. So we should be looking sideways into, and the good brands are doing it. They're popping up on our phones, speaking our language, right through to the way that I'm marketed to. The images that Matt and I would get from your brand might be completely different based on our sex, our age, what we're into, how many times we look at things. Fascinating. So
I suppose in reverse, you're probably more aware of if somebody is marketing. Like I had somebody obviously went onto their website and they were picking me up, and they didn't do a good job at it, and it was like blatant, and so I suppose if you are doing it well, it's just seamless and it just goes in. Whereas if you're not, it's probably more likely to stand out in a bad way. I will
delete you. You got me wrong.
Yeah.
To that point, it makes me think of as well, this idea of permission-based marketing is really on the forefront of where that's all going as well. And this sort of ties into that. It's like, people don't want to be sold, but I do want to buy something. I don't want to be sold your yoga class. I want you to show me, actually not even show me or convince me or educate me. I would even say that. I need you to reassure me that what I think to be true is actually true.
Right.
And more and better.
And more, exactly. So, and if I'm receiving that type of messaging, this whole idea of people opting out and unsubscribing and us being concerned, how do we not have them do that? It's like, don't send them bullshit.
Yeah.
That's how you do that. Curate the experience that's awesome for them. I always tell the story. I've got a guy, he's he's like a handstand coach. And I'm on his email serve for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. At one point,
it's a long handstand.
Yeah. At one point, that's all he does is talk about handstands. At one point, he was sending me an email like every single day. And I've never unsubscribed. I don't read all the emails. I only open maybe a quarter of them. But it doesn't bug me because I consciously opted in. When I do read it, I'm totally like entertained. It's good information. It helped me with my handstand. So like, I'm still active on his list after that amount of time, but that has nothing to do with, it's just because the quality of the specific content that he's giving me
suits
is
what you're
actually
after.
there. It's what I'm after.
Yeah.
So we gotta flip this script around where when we're looking at permission-based and interacting with people and curating the experience, it's because the real purpose is for me to interact with you in a way that keeps you engaged. And I can make a fair assumption that that's why you come to my studio, is you need me to engage you. You want me to get you motivated and excited and keep that up, because it's really hard for you to get to the studio. I was just saying in the talk downstairs too, if you get your butt off your couch, you get yoga mat underneath your dog and get the hair off of it, and you find your spandex pants and you get in your car and you drive across town and you find a parking spot and you walk up the second flight of stairs and you make it into the studio on time for a class that you have scheduled, that's an insanely large action. So I'm not just looking to like do some stretching postures at that point. There's more to it. But then that's where I'm coming into your envelope, and part of the experience and part of what you're doing, I want you to like kind of take the reins a little bit and help keep me enthusiastic and engaged. But that's different person to person.
Yeah, I would agree.
So given us the acceleration, where are we in 3 years, which is probably like about 100 tech years, things going the way that they're going right now. Where do you think we're going? I mean, I think you're on something with the audio, because, you know, you've got a sensor, you've got all the way that you're talking to your people, the behavioural stuff, how I like to see them. Where will we be in 3 years?
Well, actually, the precursor to the answer to that would also be the third part with Walla. The feature is like the customer experience on the customer side to do simple things like signing up for class. So having something that's white labeled to your brand, so that, because in this ties
together, brands, eh? Right. It's like, we don't want that anymore.
Like, no, your customer doesn't care that you use Walla to sign in. What they care is it easy? Do you have an app that actually makes sense and works? Do I know what's going on, but it's not annoying? Can I book a class and can I bring a friend? Like all of those things are
easy.
super easy, mobile responsive on your phone perfectly. The app works perfectly. In-app links, you can send a push notification if you want. Like all that stuff is just simple. And even just like simple things like the order at which you go through a checkout flow. This is really clear to me from a coaching standpoint. If I go to your site to book a class, I click book, but then the next thing it says is, oh, you're new here, fill out this waiver. That's the only moment you can really data collect from me. Therefore, on the business side, you make all these mandatory fields. But now it takes me 10 minutes to fill it out. I'm on my phone at the bus stop. The bus comes. I'm like, fuck it. And I'm out. And you lose it all. And you don't even know that you lost the sale. Versus we just reverse it. So in Walla, you click sign up, buy your intro, then book your class. But like once that first commitment's made, you're in. So our early data is showing like really insane book through rates and click through rates internally.
Frictionless, right? Getting rid of the pain points.
It's just those little things. And like we're talking about seconds, but these are big seconds. You know, it's not just time when we're talking about friction. It's the feeling while you're actually doing
and
it.
we live life this fast now, right? Like that's the pace.
Well, even Amazon, like you think about how easy it is once you're logged into Amazon, like to buy something. There's no like
send it to me.
Done and delivered.
Yeah.
Right. So if who's not using that?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's the standard,
That's
isn't
the
it?
standard.
His father's not using it. We had this conversation. That's a whole other principle.
But it's kind of insanity if you think about it, that like I can buy a pair of kitten socks on Amazon and have them to my door if I live in LA in the same day with one click. But to book a class down the street, it's going to take me 15 minutes of effort and then
a waiver,
I've got to leave a website and there's no track. Like what? It's so out of whack. So that's exactly like we gotta flip that script around, because it's dictated by the consumer. Like what are we as consumers used to? What do I want my experience to be? That's what we're solving for there. Right. So to go back to your question though, Emma, because I didn't forget it.
Yeah. No, I know you didn't. You're a good listener.
This experience as we're going through is realizing that the future of the industry are contextual digital communities for participating digitally. And the actual product that you're offering is an experience, not the class that you offer. So if that's true, both of those create two situations. One, you have to expand your consciousness of your business to realize literally every touch point. To your point about someone remarketing to you, but then you're like, I don't like the type of remarketing that I'm getting. That's part of your experience with that business. And now here we are on a podcast. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to listen to this and be like, what business is that? So I make sure that I don't go to it. Right? Yeah. So now the whole like all press is good press is not true when we're talking about it this way.
Mm.
On the other hand, you told me about, I went to the cycling studio and I just signed up, and it was like so easy. And then right there, I could like bring a friend with me and everything else. Now you're telling me in a positive way, and that's going to amplify the word of mouth, which we know is the primary driver for boutique fitness altogether. So building the frictionless experience, curating it for the person, and making sure that we're understanding that the future of the industry is making the experience on the whole, including right from the advertisement, me watching a video, receiving your email, signing up for the class, I come to the desk, I get identified correctly, someone engages me, I have an epic class, which you've already got solved because we've been practicing that for 20 years. And then afterwards, the follow-up is flawless and on brand. At no point do I feel like I'm not part of you. Like, that's just going to be the standard.
Yeah.
It's actually silly that it isn't already, but that's really where we're going. And then the amplifier of that, the other thing I mentioned is private digital community being the future as well. It's the idea that content is king, but context is God. Mm-hmm. So everyone in the boutique fitness industry says they have a great community. What's happened is their product has aggregated people. Then the people who might not have normally interacted start interacting, but it's kind of just a fluke that's happened rather than a business strategy itself. And moving forward, I would anticipate there'll be a lot of businesses where the actual strategy is the community, not the product that's being sold. And it's as simple as this. It's really easy for me to quit a gym pass. It's really hard for me to quit a community. And the context comes in because if I want to send you, just because yoga is easy for me to talk about, like you own a hot yoga studio, I come out of class, I need to rehydrate at home, I have a headache. That's a normal occurrence that can maybe happen for a new student. If I want to send you like, here's the smoothie recovery recipe or something like that, what am I going to do? Email that to you or text it? Like most of your clients aren't going to get it. Send you a link to then go watch it on YouTube. Like that's not really the way that people want to consume that information. And therefore, we're saving those types of communications for really important things. And that stuff doesn't happen. So where do we put that? If I join your private digital community, that's where that lives. And it makes sense contextually because it's part of the bigger conversation around the fact that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's an interesting way of looking at it, separating things. Yeah. Well, I think we're out of time, but
like, we could talk all day.
We'll have to.
Amazing. I mean, thank you for being in the industry and just bringing professionalism and listening. Like I think with the yoga, like you're just so present, and I think it's all coming through in the work and the way that you articulated it for us. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, great to meet you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.